Okay, folks, welcome back to another exciting episode of the Microsoft 7687 exam course covering Windows 8.1. My name is Scott Neal, and today we are looking at Lesson 22, Configuring System Recovery Settings. It is part of Exam Objective 7.2 today. We're pretty much talking about recovering from operating system failures. We're going to be looking at the recovery drive, system restore. We're going to be looking at some newcomers, PC refresh and reset. And I'm throwing in safe mode as an extra gimme before I talk about the demo today and finishing the lecture. So let's go ahead and get started. Before I talk a little bit about the recovery drive, I do want to mention that as far as 8.1 goes, I don't think that we have seen any more recovery options than we see in 8.1 in any previous Windows operating system. With that said, it's also good to point out that most of these recovery options do require a little forethought on the user's behalf in order for them to be set up, configured, and enabled in advance of some sort of a catastrophic failure. So, a little forethought on your part prior to a failure event will reduce the amount of stress and recovery issues that you deal with after the event. So, recovery drive is no exception to this rule. The recovery drive can allow you to boot into a corrupted operating system and access important recovery tools, provided that the recovery drive has been created prior to that problem occurring. So, if your operating system fails and you can no longer boot into the operating system, if you have configured the recovery drive on some sort of a writable optical disk or on a USB drive, you're going to be in a much better position as far as being able to recover from that event quickly and get back to productivity. Another nice thing about the recovery drive is that if you have a computer with the original equipment manufacturer recovery partition, and most of them today do, you can recreate these recovery drives and encompass all of those files as well, so you can completely do a system reset. Alright, system restore. Most people who use Windows are familiar in some way with System Restore. It was originally introduced in Windows XP, and the whole point of System Restore is to save information about your drives, the registry settings, programs, and files. We save them as what we call restore points, or points in time that we can go back to. Now, System Restore points are also, once it's configured, they're going to be frequently and automatically created as part of, say, a system update or some sort of an application install. But you can manually create the restore point at any time. Okay. Generally speaking, also, I think the default automatic restore point for system restore is 7 days. So if nothing eventful is going on in the system, every 7 days a restore point will be created automatically for you as part of that default process. Now, you can select a restore point at any time to return many of the operating system and registry settings to that previous state. The nice thing about System Restore is that it does not affect your personal data. I will also point out that if you are in a position where you have to disable System Restore for any reason, maybe you are doing a manual uninstall of some sort of malware and you've been advised to turn off System Restore, if you do so, you will lose all previous restore points on the system. Alright, so let's move to the two newcomers, PC Reset and PC Refresh. PC Reset basically allows you to return your system back to its out-of-the-box, original installed 8.1 operating system state. Now, unlike System Restore, if you choose to use PC Reset, it will erase all of your personal data, all of the custom settings, and any of the Windows apps from the system. This is going to be the equivalent to a full unattended install of the operating system. An unattended install being basically an install where you don't have to answer all of those silly questions, like what language you need and do you want networking, and so all that's been recorded and you don't have to do that again. But you're basically getting the operating system as it was when you first started it for the very first time. If that's a little too intense for you, you may opt to do a PC refresh. Now, In our business, when we talk about a refresh, we're talking about really doing a wipe and reload of the user operating system and then returning it back to the original user with all of their users' preferences intact. And the PC refresh is similar in some ways to that. For instance, like a PC refresh, I would restore the user's data. Your personal data will remain intact for a PC refresh. Your Windows Store apps, your basic configuration settings, and if you've got BitLocker or BitLocker to go set up on that particular system, those configurations will remain intact as well. However, PC settings are going to be reconfigured to the default settings. You're going to lose all of your desktop applications, your display settings, and any specially configured file associations are also going to be erased as part of the refresh process. In return, you're going to get an HTML file that's going to be created. It's going to contain all the information about your desktop applications and any links to the vendor's websites that are available as far as so you can go back and try to easily download these desktop apps and reinstall them on the system. Now, if that's still a little too intense for you and you don't want to have to go through the trouble of reinstalling your desktop apps every time you do a PC refresh, we do have another option for you. PC refreshes are really very good if you find that your system is beginning to run a little sluggish. I always like to use the dump truck analogy here. You know, if I buy a brand new dump truck and every day I throw a brick in the dump truck and drive it to work, eventually the truck's going to get full of bricks and you're going to see a degradation in performance on the truck. It's going to start to run slower, it's going to use more gas, the tire's going to wear out quicker, and a computer is really no different. Over the course of using it every day, a lot of, for lack of a better word, garbage is going to end up on the system, whether it's malware, whether it's stuff that you've tried, free trial editions, whatever. You're building up a bunch of registry settings in there and stuff. A lot of this stuff becomes outdated and useless. At some point you want to dump the dump truck and start over. Same thing with a computer. You want to refresh it. So, setting up PC refresh can be a good way to kind of restore the system back to that nice optimal performance that you were used to having. But I can understand you don't want to do a reinstall of the desktop applications, and I don't blame you. I have a secret for you. You can use the record image utility to prevent you from having to do that. The record image utility can capture an image of the PC after you've installed all the applications you want, set up all those personal customizations, and it will store it in the folder of your choosing. Now, once you have done this, once again, a little bit of forethought goes a long way. Once I've done this, then anytime I invoke the refresh, my PC refresh, it's going to refer to that folder that I've created, thereby retaining all of the settings and desktop applications for you. So, this is kind of a loophole to further reduce the amount of setup needed after the PC refresh. Kind of slick, right? I thought so. Alright. Last but not least, I do want to talk about safe mode before I go into the demo. Now, most people who use Windows have heard of safe mode. Safe mode does start your computer with only the basic files and drivers necessary to run Windows. We use it as a troubleshooting or diagnostic utility primarily. It's also particularly useful if I want to analyze malware or if I want to remove malware, because I know that there's a higher probability that that malware is not going to be running in the background in safe mode, making it easier to get rid of. Now, when you're in safe mode, it's going to be pretty obvious because it's going to say safe mode in the four corners of your monitor, and you will know, you'll get a little nag box when you first log into safe mode saying this is what it is, this is what it does, this is how you get out of it. Alright, so safe mode, for those people who like safe mode, me, I like safe mode, it is still available in 8.1. Now, it is a bit trickier to access, and I want to talk a little bit about that before I finish up. So, safe mode, most people who have used safe mode, they hit the F8 button when the computer boots up, and you can get into your safe mode options. But Shift F8 and F8 probably are not going to work for you now. They're still supported by Windows 8 and 8.1, but because Windows 8 is so much faster, so much darn faster, it's more often than not getting into F8 or hitting F8 and Shift F8 to get into the safe mode is not going to work for you. Particularly if I'm running a PC with UEFI BIOS and maybe a fast SSD drive, then there's no way I'm going to be able to interrupt that boot procedure with key presses. You can just forget it. So we have to think of some alternative methods to get into safe mode. Probably the easiest way to get into safe mode is to go in through the system configuration tool. So if you can get in, Windows does boot up for you, and you can get into Windows and invoke the msconfig utility, you can go to the boot tab, and under the boot options you will see that there is something called safe boot. It's basically safe mode, right? And here are your 4 typical safe mode options: minimal, alternate shell, Active Directory repair, and network. So you basically have your 4 options you can choose from. Select safe boot, click OK, and you're going to be asked to restart the system. When you do, you're going to boot into the safe mode option of your choosing. Alright. You can also use the power option to do this. I can press the power button at the Windows login screen or the settings charm, then press and hold the shift key on the keyboard and click restart. Now when I do that, I'm going to have 3 options: continue, troubleshoot, or turn off the PC. I want to select troubleshoot, and then I will choose my advanced troubleshooting options. Okay? Once I do that, you're going to see that startup settings is an option available to you. Click on that, choose to restart the system, and then your safe mode options will be available to you, that you can just pick and choose the option that you want that's going to best suit your needs. So, a couple ways that you can still get into safe mode. It's just a little more difficult. Alright, so I want to summarize. 8.1 does have several methods of recovering from system failures, including driver rollbacks. We didn't talk about that. We've talked about driver rollbacks in a previous lecture. But you do have the ability to go in through the device manager and do a driver rollback if you've installed a driver and it's creating havoc on your system. A driver rollback may be a solution to that. We had an issue with VMware just the other day on our operating systems, and we use a product called VMware Workstation, and one of the updates for Windows was creating problems, one of the driver updates, and we did a rollback. So driver rollbacks is an option, recovery drive is an option, system restore, PC reset and refresh, and safe mode. These are all ways that I can recover from some sort of catastrophic issue. Now, the recovery drive can be used to access diagnostic recovery tools in the event of a catastrophic system crash, preventing a reboot. But it does have to be set up in advance, and you set it up on a DVD or on a USB stick. Now, system restore has to be enabled, but once it's enabled, it's going to create restore points roughly every 7 days or so, unless there's an event on the system, like some sort of desktop application install, or you're doing a update of the system. It will usually create at any point. Nice thing about using or going back to an earlier state using System Restore is that you can pretty much rest assured that your personal data will not be disrupted. PC Reset and Refresh are newer options. They can restore the system. They can restore the system all the way back to the original OEM specifications if you need to. But if you're going to be configuring PC Refresh, one of the nice things to consider is using that record image utility to save you the trouble of reinstalling the applications and reconfiguring the system after the refresh. Last but not least, as I pointed out, safe mode is not dead. It's still available in 8.1, albeit a little more difficult than the previous versions. Okay, so I would like to go to the demo section next, and we'll look at some of these utilities. Okay, folks, welcome back to the demo portion of today's lecture. I do want to take a moment to show you some of the recovery options that we discussed earlier in our lecture today. Let me go ahead and get logged into the system. And we'll go ahead and start talking about some of the available recovery options. What I really want to show you today is I want to show you at the very least where to find all these recovery options, and maybe we'll demo a couple of them as well. For one thing, we could probably demo building a recovery drive. I would probably like to at least show you how to do a restore point, and then I can at least show you where you can find the PC refresh, the PC reset, and I probably ought to show you at least one way to get into safe mode. So we're going to go ahead and wait for the system to boot up, and then we will get started. Okay, folks, so the system's already booted up and ready to go. I want to go ahead and get started. We can actually access all of the recovery options that we discussed through the desktop and the control panel by simply going into the control panel and looking up recovery. Once we get into the recovery options, you can see that our menu is significantly more advanced than it was in the Windows 7 menu in the recovery options of operating systems gone by. Here we can create a recovery drive, we can open the system restore and look at our restore points, and we can configure system restore as well. And we also have the option here to go in and look at our PC settings. In particular, we can look at the refresh and the reset, and we can even get into safe mode through here, an option that we did not talk about in the lecture. Let's go ahead and get started by building a recovery drive. So I want to create a recovery drive so that in the event that my system will no longer boot, I can use the recovery drive to boot into the operating system repair utilities. As you can see, we're going to use the recovery drive to help with troubleshooting in the event of a failure. If our operating system was part of an operating system that was delivered by an equipment manufacturer, this item here would be highlighted and available to us, and we could actually copy pieces of the recovery partition over to our recovery drive as well. But since this is a standalone version of 8.1, this is not going to be doable for us. So we'll select Next. And it's going to go out and it's going to find any available drives that can be set up as a recovery drive. Okay, so it found my USB flash drive, and just remember, in this particular instance, it has to be at least 512 megabytes in size. And you also have to remember that if you're going to build a recovery drive, everything on the drive itself will be deleted when you build it. So select Next. Just a reminder that everything will indeed be deleted. Create, and it will begin preparing the drive and then copying the utilities over. Okay, so now that the recovery drive is ready, we simply select Finish, and we now have a recovery drive on a flash drive that we can keep for safekeeping in the event of some sort of boot failure of the operating system. Now, let's go in and look at our system restore points. As you can see, I've already created one restore point. Maybe I want to create another restore point. I can also go in and show all the restore points that have been created on the system since its inception. I'm going to cancel out of this, and I am going to configure system restore and go in and create a restore point for you. Now that I'm in the system restore, I have the option of going in and configuring. If I go in and configure system restore, as you can see, I have turned on the system protection. It does show me the current usage, how much of that usage, or 3%, 1.8 gigs, is allowed on the system. And I can cancel out of this, and I can go in and create a system repoint. And we're just going to call this system December 1A. Okay. And the operating system will now create that system restore point for the specific operating system files and registry settings, so that if it ever needs to be reverted back to this particular point in time, we can do that. System Restore also does not affect any of your personal data. It only affects select operating system files and the registry settings, as well as a few other disk settings. Okay, as you can see, the System Restore point was created successfully. If I go back, hit OK, if I go back into my System Restore, I can actually see that that restore point is indeed available to me. Okay? Alright. Now, perhaps System Restore doesn't fix your problems with your PC, and maybe you need to do a PC reset or a refresh. You can also access those from this control panel option as well. Simply click on that link there. You're going to be taken to the PC settings. If you're in the Metro view, then you can see the PC settings icon. You can click on it and you'll end up here. So you have two options. I'm not going to run either one of these. They're pretty GUI specific and very easy to get into. I can do a refresh here, or I can do a reset here. Okay. Bear in mind that reset will obliterate everything on the operating system, and it is the equivalent of an unattended fresh install of the operating system. A refresh is not quite as painful. It will obliterate your desktop applications, unless, of course, you have recorded a new image using that record image utility. You can also notice, if we remember what we talked about in our lecture about going into safe mode, one of the things we had to do was get into advanced startup to make that happen. As you can see, I have that option available here. So this is yet another method in which I can get into safe mode if I need to. So let's take a moment to go ahead and boot into safe mode. As you can see, the operating system is going to give me my three options: continue, troubleshoot, and turn off PC. If I say troubleshoot, advanced options, and then go into startup settings, hit restart, and when the system restarts, I should see my safe mode options available to me. Okay, and sure enough, there they are. I have several safe mode options. I can enable debugging, enable boot logging, and then of course there we get number 4, safe mode with networking, safe mode with command prompt, and I am going to choose 5, safe mode with networking. Safe mode with networking will allow me to install the minimum amount of drivers needed to get Windows up and running, as well as allow the network stack to function correctly. This will allow me to, say, download the most recent version of anti-malware and run it on my system, or use the internet to further diagnose any system issues. Okay, as you can see, we have booted into safe mode. I will show you that it's in safe mode because in all 4 corners, if I minimize the screen here, all 4 corners are going to say safe mode, safe mode, safe mode, safe mode. So this will allow me to go in and better diagnose my system because I'll have a minimum amount of drivers running. Sometimes this may be the only way that you can boot into your system successfully. So knowing how to get into safe mode can be a lifesaver when you need it. Alright folks, that's all I have for you today as far as the demo goes. Okay, and when we come back, we'll discuss one more file recovery option that is available in Windows 8.1. Have a great day.